Welcome to the third day of the second phase network workshop organized by Sipati Consulting and Project Management. Today we're going to have two new guest speakers, which is Pablo Ribeiro first, and then after the break, Marieta Manjat. I'm just going to do a quick review of what has happened on the last 2 days. We've had a few of our regional partners give their address. We have people from Botswana, Lesotho, Malawi, Namibia, Zambia, Zimbabwe, and here in Mozambique. I'm just going to mention a few, and then I'm going to open the floor for those who did not manage to give their addresses on Tuesday and on Wednesday. So we have Kiba from Botswana. We have Kiba from Botswana, Morijo Museum Archives from Lesotho, Music Crossroads from Malawi, University of Malawi. We have Zambia from Zambia, and Music Crossroads from Zimbabwe, and Kuvula. Open the floor for Gamba Network from Zimbabwe and K Media Africa from Zimbabwe. Are any of these representatives here with us today? Please raise your hand so that I can give you the floor.
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, hello, Keith. So please, can you give us an address, some information about your project and about your company, please?
All right, thank you very much. My name is Keith Kowudzai. I'm from K Media Africa. We are a multimedia production company based in Zimbabwe, Harare, Zimbabwe. We are working on an animation, musical animation series called Ephemeral Tales, which will consist of 4 episodes, and it's utilizing cross-sector disciplines of music and digital art, such as animation and illustration, to tell uniquely Zimbabwean stories. And that's what our project is about. And yeah, really excited to be part of this workshop. And yeah, we really enjoyed yesterday's session. We couldn't join the one on the 28th, but yesterday's session was really, really insightful. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you for your address. Any information that you may have missed from the 2 days will be added into the workbook, so you can always catch up once we send the workbooks out. Moving on, I wanted to ask, is there anyone here from the Magamba Network from Zimbabwe that can give their address about their company and their projects? Anyone from the Magamba Network? Okay, anyone from Tumani Letu here that can give us their address? Okay, so I'm just going to give a quick review of what we were speaking about yesterday. So yesterday, our two speakers, which was Rufus Makuluve and Rui Mondlane, were speaking mostly about risks. Rufus gave us a good extensive list of the different types of risks that you can find and should be prepared for your projects, such as intentional risks like fraud and theft, operational, that's when your machines might have an issue, you might have risks, which is exchange risks that you should always be prepared for, court cases, fraud, and okay, so everyone still hear me fine. We're having a few issues with our internet and sound today, and I would like to apologize. Can you please just give us 2 minutes so we can sort it out? Once again, so sorry. Okay. We shall commence then. Okay, just a quick review of Rui Mondlane's address. He spoke mainly about the administrative and financial risks and procedures, as well as solicited documents for projects. The main points that he spoke about yesterday was that it's important to communicate all issues that you might have in terms of the necessary documents that the donors will need ahead of time. You need to make sure that you know ahead of time which documents that they need and would want through the financial manual that's always provided, and make sure that if there will be any discrepancies, to communicate with your donors beforehand, before starting any of your steps of the project. Also to remember to include a financial specialist or an administrative specialist to handle this part of the job. It's important that all creatives and all administrative teams always work together, as was explained on Tuesday as well. The financial specialist is there to help you in preparation of everything that is the budget, contracts, and financial report from the get-go of you starting to write your project all the way through your project and to get to the end. It is very essential. So today we're going to have our first lecturer, which is Pablo Ribeiro. In Mozambique. He is the manager of cultural projects and organizations for ideation, planning, coordination, administration, and evaluation. He is a project manager for the FFLC and the producer of residencies and artistic projects. Cultural communication manager, consultant for Collective of Cultural Centers in Maputo, the founder and administrator Criativo Zoto, so the Creative Studio Zoto, and he was the executive director at FFLC. The Foundation for Fernando Leite Couto. He is a founder, curator, and manager at the Mashamba Criativa, the Creative Mashamba. Mashamba is another word for farm and agriculture, but it's mainly a Mozambican term. And founder and executive project manager at the Creative Studio in Nima, and the communication and public relations manager at the Cultural Center Franco-Mozambicano, French Cultural Center.
We were talking about seeing everyone, maybe in the past. It's always nice to see to who we are talking. So it's great to be able to share some of our experience with colleagues in different countries in Africa, Zimbabwe, Lesotho, and Botswana, and so on. We are all here today, it's because we are all launching projects, and some of us are facing some challenges that have been overcome with practical solutions. Or need some orientation to be overcome. So my name is Pablo, and I'm here just to share some experience with how to deal with the three specific subjects that you have a point as questions that need to be addressed in this workshop. So we're preparing now a short presentation for us to see. So just for a small statement from Churchill: who fails to plan is planning to fail. So it is really in the roots of the project where everything starts. And most of us, when we start to build the project, do it if we were looking for a fund. Do it because the fund has been opened. Do it because the fund is now available, and then we all start running with the elaboration of the projects, putting together all the necessary information and doing the timeline and achieve the project at first, which is, I think, the one of the most important elements of the project. So, in the project cycle, start with the idea, how to ideate the project. We'll then see in the next slide some short ideas about this. Then we elaborate the project, and so that when we are managing the project and evaluating the project, we don't have to face certain problems that could be anticipated. So the slide ends. In already start identifying potential obstacles that we will face. This starts with the first brainstorming, which is all the crazy ideas we would like to do, things that we find really relevant in our field of work and necessary for specific beneficiaries, if they are artists or other kind of beneficiaries. These crazy ideas, of course, have specific results or outcomes and activities to achieve them. And in order to already start to anticipate these challenges, it's important to see within the idea that we will be working with, what are the resources and capacities that we find. So that resources starts within our own resources. I would advise that we always choose an idea within our area of expertise, if we are an institution or a collective of creative and administrative people looking to develop a project. See first what is our own experience and knowledge, what do we have the domain on, because those will then be solutions to the activities you have to come. And then you have to identify resources and capacities that you don't have, but will be needed for the project. And in order to identify that, well, you'll quickly see within tasks that need to be done, which are the tasks that you don't know. You don't have experience or you have no knowledge, and start searching within your address contacts, within your network, or within networks that you need to be researching on, which could be the resources for those capacities. Once you have identified those resources and those capacities, then you can analyze which will be the enablers and the blockers. We will see this afterwards. And with all these tools, then you can validate your idea within the impact of the idea in terms of the general objective that you wanna achieve, the relevance of this idea for the beneficiaries that you will be working with, and when I talked about the dimension is some of us intend to work on projects that are maybe bigger than what we could deal with, we could manage. So it's important that the number of activities, the results that we are looking to achieve are within the dimensions that we can manage. So that's the budget that we will elaborate, and the timeline that we elaborate. We'll be able to address these risks and viability. So this is how we see the idea. So the idea, and we start to elaborate the project. I know some really elementary elements for you guys, taking in consideration that if we are here, is because you are already many projects have already proposal, budget, and timeline. But we see what must happen at obstacle for you to overcome, and see how you can improve that. So on your elaboration of the project, I will go very quickly on this. You do, of course, the general goal and the specific goal, which must be something that you are confident to be able to achieve and is contribute to the area in which your project will be developed. If it's music, arts, arts and crafts, cinema, or other. Of course, those objectives will address to a certain, will benefit from activities that they will participate, but they can be also those who will collaborate with you to create those activities. So the outcomes, which will be the measurable results that you will be, these outcomes need to really to be down to fit to earth. They need to be achievable within your capacities and within the team and resources you have, or you will contract and search for. So they have to be relevant, doable, and you have to be able to absorb the evaluation the evaluation of these results within, which is upon the results, the activities that you will be developing. So activities, it's what you will do on your everyday life of the work, on that life cycle of your project. You will have tasks that will be yours as a project manager, or will be your team's work in terms of who will do what specific tasks and how they will achieve it and where. So we can take, for example, a training development. If you're developing a training for others, then you'll have to know who will do the training. If this person is not part of your team, then you'll have to identify that person and see what will be the time management for this person in order to develop the content and the methodology of this training. And then how will all of this will happen in terms of space and time and technical conditions in order for the trainer to be able to develop the training with the better conditions possible. And where, of course, can be a physical or a digital place with those necessary conditions for you to continue. We'll go to the next slide. So this is like some small exercises I do when I'm developing the project. Facilitators and blockers are something that be in 5 specific areas, which is the time you need to prepare, develop, implement, and then do the reporting. The different physical or digital spaces that you will use in order to develop your activities, and all the resources. So the human resources, the technical resources, and the final. A quick table of these facilitators and blockers. Don't hesitate in put anything that comes to your mind. The quantity of elements here is important, and analyze each element that you will put in these 2 tables, so that you are sure that what is a facilitator that can become an opportunity is not something that you have to put beside. It's just something that you know that you have the capacity, and once you are developing the project, you can then specify how you're going to use that as an opportunity. And the blocker is not something that you need to just kick out of your project. It's something that you will need to find solutions to. If it's material resources, so it's a specific equipment that you don't have within your institution or organization, it's something that you'll need to have within partners, or maybe even import for you to have. Then I will give you some examples of blockers that we didn't at the time of the elaboration we didn't see, and now we are facing the situation and need to find solutions that are changing our budget structure, our contract with our donor, and the activities itself that we are developing. So this is something that is normally done by big NGOs and big companies that do projects that will address gets to the outcomes. Hear me? Everybody out there. Hello. So can anyone hear me? Having some difficulties with the internet. Thank you, Catherine. Okay, so I'll give this short presentation. What I'm sharing here is just some exercises that we use with the team that will ideate the project and then develop the elaboration of the project. It's just a more ludic way to put us in front of certain situations that need to be addressed. So we can go to the next. Starting with the goal. Once you have identified a certain problem, it's important to see what is the local resources and capacities. So this is the things that is within your power to be able to guarantee for the project. Because you will see also that you have resources and capacities that you don't have and need to be found. So if you can already identify them before you implement the project, it will be the best way to avoid having difficulties within the phase of preparation of your project to find them, because you can always have a time of some months to prepare the project once you get the fund. Because you don't always know who you will find within the network that you have. Access the needs of your beneficiaries. It depends on the kind of activities that you will do, if they are artists, and if depending on the kind of challenge that you have. So I will give you an example. We're developing now a project with a European fund that consists in producing musical albums for 10 artists. And we needed at that time to identify with the artists what would be the needs that they will have, to first work with mentors in ideas of the composition of the musics, and then to produce the albums within studios prepared for that, and what time could be needed for that. So and identifying and analyzing the collaborative structure that you will be working with. In this case, we were talking about record studios. In other projects, it can be other stakeholders. It can be also important to see what kind of calendar they have within a year, and how to fit your timeline within their calendars, in order to be sure that when it comes to the phase to work with them, you don't come to a surprise that they won't be available, and this has to be taken care of with the necessary anticipation. So then, of course, this will put into your context to describe the situation in which you are with. And we've seen the enables and blockers, which are the risks that you can see. Rufus talked about this yesterday, so we won't go deeper on that. And then you can prioritize what will be the hypothesis that you will develop within your project. So at the end of all this process, you will do your technical proposal, which this is in Portuguese. It's is the language I work with normally. So from left to right, it has the general objective with the specific objective coming afterwards. The targets to who you will address these objectives, and then the results that the outcomes that you want to achieve, and the activities that you will develop to achieve the outcomes, and then the specific projects, as I was saying, like a music album or an episodes, a podcast episodes, or a training activity or other. The time that you will need for it and the resources. If you have the time to study each of these phases while you're elaborating the project, you will normally be able to identify obstacles that you will then address within the implementation, and avoid any surprises with that implementation. Of course, this needs time. The bigger the project is and the most challenging it is, and if the project is out of your expertise, well, the more the most risk you have to find obstacles when you're implementing the project, because you won't be able to anticipate all of these while you're elaborating the project. So going on, the lack of organization project is one of the subjects that you have put on. This lack of organization, I've chosen these subjects because I think they are they have a relation between one with another. So the lack of organization starts with your team structure. And how is that team put together, and the planning of the projects. Normally, the phases of the projects are aligned with the phases of the. It's always a challenge to work within these new technologies that are being used since COVID. But it's an opportunity also to be able to do a workshop like this one, being in different countries. Hello, hello, can anyone hear? The hybrid stuff. It's been a change in our lives since COVID. Just a quick story. All of us had to go from activities that were presential with people around us, and we had to make a migration to the virtual world, and well, all the technical conditions are quite complicated, and in our continent, it's the most complicated one in terms of internet access. But we are here to continue, and if everyone can hear. So this was just a quick preparation of the team. That's the team and the resources that you need to ensure that your project has before you start. So it's a checklist actually that you're going to do before you start the project, so that we then can start the project. So your A team, if you're able to have it, Rui was also talking about this yesterday. So it's the project manager, which will be responsible to make the follow-up on the timeline and the activities, and also the budget, even if he has a financial manager. And we will coordinate the whole team, keeping everyone motivated and anticipating as the best as he can eventual problems. Normally, what I do is I work in a weekly based planning. So every Monday, I join the whole team. And I know from the week before the results that we have achieved and the activities that we are ongoing. So I verify within our timeline projects and within our budget what is the goals the deadlines that we have and the goals that we have within that week, and I certify with the team that everyone is aligned with them. And so at that time, everyone has the space and liberty to be able to develop their activities within what they think that are their capacities, so that I know if we have any kind of delay, that we can anticipate the delay and maybe even inform our donors or partners that the delay can come. So we can go to the next slide. Your timeline is Most of us do a timeline within the beginning of the project because it's a document that we need to deliver in order to get the funds. But a lot of us, once we are implementing the project, just forget that timeline and just is so immersed within the activities that is ongoing that we don't go back to the timeline and see what were the deadlines and what was the periods that we had to do and the duration that we had to do the activities. So it is important that we continually use this timeline in order to be able to control the development of our activities, to inform our colleagues that we are getting to a short timeline, to a deadline. So if you have, for instance, communication development, if you're developing like the training or the communication and you know that this should start in a week from now, it's important that you communicate this to your team in order to them to start working, because of course your team is always heads in activities that are ongoing, and maybe they will not be able to see that they have to start working on a certain phase of their activities. So in order to choose the most suitable time for your timeline, it's important financing phases of your donor. So you have normally a first pre-financing, which will be able to start the first activities, and that's because of that, you will know that certain activities or certain time of those activities will only be able to be developed within that payments. That's value of that payment that you will get. Then see the availability of your resources if they're consultants. So if you're working with a trainer that is going to do a workshop within your project, and you know that you will only be able within 3 months of the beginning of the project, so that you will know that you will only plan that activity 3 months from now. So it's important that you really certify that that resources is when it will be available. And sometimes the resources can be an equipment. I can do now a quick example. We are implementing a project in the Mozambican islands. It's a project that's so the outcome, it's 8 podcast episodes about the cultural preservation of fishermen communities in the Mozambique island. And we needed a certain equipment to start the recording all those stories. And we thought that those equipment will be available in Mozambique, but it was really a specific equipment that we didn't find here. So we're now in the phase of recording those episodes, and we don't have the equipment. So we had to buy and import equipment in the United States. Well, we had an advantage is our donator is the United States Embassy, so they're facilitating those the purchase of those equipment. But we had to change all our timeline because we will only be able to start this phase within 2 months from now, and organize other activities to not have 2 months completely stopped. This was agreed with our donor, and it was agreed with the people that we were working with. So for you to see, when we doing the timeline at that time, we didn't do the correct verification of our technical resources, and now we had to do changes not only on our budgets but also in our timeline, and we found solutions with that. So we can go on. So this is the timeline that you all had put together when you started the project. So use this tool as a monitoring tool. As a project manager, you can use this tool. You can look at it every week or at least every month and control that what you're doing in that week or that month is aligned on what you were what you anticipated to do. It's really important to align those things. What is the real time activity that you're doing and what was expected to do within the first timeline that you delivered to your donor and is part of your contract, so that you don't have then to justify to your donor a change of timeline that can have maybe an impact on a change of your contract, which is not always possible because a contract is based on a certain deadline to deliver the project, and it's in your interest that you don't go that you don't overcome that deadline. So some tools that you can work with, okay, activity planning. So let's say the project is ongoing, okay, so you're starting a phase, you're starting a set of specific activities, okay, within a result that you want to achieve. So once you're starting that activities, it's important to see within the specific activities. So I'm taking this example again, the training or an artistic residency or production of a film. So you have to see who will do what within your internal team and the collaboration team that you will have, so the people you will contract to work with you. When will this happen? If it's the week that you're working on, if it's next week, and then what are the necessary resources, so that you know when this activity is starting, all of this is guaranteed. You know, you're not going to get to the training as we're doing now, and you don't have the necessary equipment for it, or you're starting to film something and you don't have the necessary sound equipment for it. So it is important to really make that checklist at the beginning of your planning and be able to ensure that that is guaranteed. So you have some tools that you can work on. This is something that I use for each activity. Here we have 4 activities, but you can do this just for one activity. So this is in Portuguese. So on from left to right, I'll put the specific activity that I have to do. What is the duration or the deadline that I need to finish this activity, or the duration in which I have to develop the activity? What is the team? So what is my specific team? Even if it's an administrator for the artist to work with that activity, or if it's the producer that needs to organize the space and equipment for the activity to work. So I need to put all of those people within that space and be sure that they are informed of the work that they have to do and have started to organize their part of their work. So next is where will this activity take place? If it's within your institution, if it's within a partner's institution, or maybe in a public space. If it's a public space, you have to certify that you have the needed authorization from your municipality to do that. So all of this will then start to emerge like documents, equipments, resources that you need to be able to ensure that you have for the activity to happen. Then the materials will be the equipment. These can be technical materials. It can be materials if you are developing, for instance, artist residency in terms of plastic arts, then maybe you'll need like paints, papers, and wood. But it can be also like sound and light and all those equipments. I already put my cost here because I know in my budget that I have a limit on the cost I have. So some of us, when we will develop activities, we see that, let's see, in order to have sound equipment, we need to rent that sound equipment. And we've like put in our budget around 100 for that sound equipment. And once we do activities, we only find it for 150. So I have to put my cost here. This will then help me to monitorize my budget and see what effect, direct effect will have then on my monthly report budget. So if it's going to be a positive effect or a negative effect on it. And then what is the state of your activity? Are you preparing it? Is it ongoing or is it done? Okay, so this is, it can be a week planning activity. It can be a month's planning activity. You can do this on a paper. You can do it on your computer. But it's important that this tool is aligned with all your team. It means that it's not a tool for you as a project manager to work on. It's a tool for your team to work on. Because your planning team, your planning tool is mostly your project timeline. Okay, let's go on. So you have some project management platforms. It has been difficult for a lot of project managers to work with these platforms. So I will say this is not a solution for me. But if you are able to have a team that has the discipline to work with you, you can use one of these. So I don't know if you know Trello or Asana or Airtable or Monday. These are it's a digital platform management, which you can put like tasks if it's to prepare, ongoing or done. And within this task, you can put the task to a specific person, and you can attach a document to that task. And then you can control your timeline within that platform. But for this to work, you have to be sure that your colleagues are also have also the discipline. They're committed to using that platform. And many of the projects I've been working on, this hasn't been able to do because not everyone is. It's not a question of commitment. It's a question of to be familiarized with these kind of platforms. So I will only advise for a project manager, for him or for himself, to choose maybe one of these. If they have not worked with this before, and start to put this into practice and see how this can it can help them. It can help you as a project manager to control the development of your project. So you won't share it with your team, but it will allow you to have a better control on what you're doing. Mostly if you have more projects, like I'm managing at the moment 4 projects. So for me to remember what is going to happen in each project, I need to have a workspace that has all of those tasks organized. If we had some time, I could show you one of my Trellos or one of my Asanas and how is that organized, but we can keep that maybe to another session. Let's go to the next one. So what I advise normally is to have the Google ecosystem. Okay, most of us have a Gmail. So if we have a Gmail, we have access to the Google solution. I find this really practical. I managed an institutional team of 12 people. And I have to guarantee that everyone is informed before anything happens, and everyone can control what they're doing. And we have spaces to put together our our documents, and we have tools that we can work on online. So if you're familiarized with Google, take advantage of the tools. The calendar, for instance, not all of us, of course, have a smartphone, but if we have a smartphone and a computer, you will have a calendar in it. That calendar can be Google or can be the one that is part of the application within your telephone or your computer. So you can synchronize your calendar within a Google account, and then synchronize everyone's calendar, everyone within your team, with that Google account. So what I do is, if I want to put together a task or an event, I'm going to put that in my calendar, and it will automatically show in their calendar. so that I'm sure that everyone is informed. It's not enough. Then on the week planning with the team, I will then make sure that what I put in the calendar has been taken in consideration by the team. The email, I won't take any time of this. It's just a way to send information. Then you have tools like the forms. For instance, I'm managing a festival with 18 different institutions. So it's a lot of people to work with. And we had to find a way to organize the program of the festival and then collect all the content for those programs. It's specific activities, shows that we organized, and we need to put all the information into. So what we use is the forms. We configured the Google Forms within the needs that we had of the specific content we need to collect. And then we share this form with all 8 institutions that share with all the artists that you're working with, and everyone has to fill that form, in which you can also upload and attach like an image, so that we had in one specific place everything already organized. And then, of course, docs and sheets are your online Word and Excel, so that if you have a specific program or a specific calendar, you can put it online and you can ask your collaborative team to work with it. Let's go on. I won't take any time of this. Just 1 second. I know that many cultural institutions only use a calendar. Okay, so they put together in that calendar events that they have to do, and if it's that day, so let's choose any day of the week. Today, we have an event, so I'll put in that day all the necessary equipment and the team, and I share this. So I do this in the beginning of the month for the next month, and I give this calendar to all of my team, and I make sure that everyone is informed and follow the calendar. But I can tell you that this is not enough, and I've come to the conclusion that you need to develop within the calendar that implementation plan for your activity, and then specifically make the follow-up, the planning follow-up every week with your team. So going on our subject. This is a lot of information, but it's basic information. If you have done any questions on what I was presenting until now, or if you feel like you have like more technical specific things that you are now addressing and need some consulting in how to overcome, and it wasn't part of what I was presenting, don't hesitate in presenting on the questions and answer after this presentation. I am conscious that some of what I'm saying, it's really basic, and some it's already some tools that you can use. So internal control system, the deficiencies. So, well, once again, if you're facing difficulties in controlling your financing, for instance, it's what we're going to see now. It can be because you made a budget that wasn't aligned with the activities that you're doing, okay? Or you don't have the necessary team to put together that control. Let's say you are a small institution and you are the project manager and also the financial and administrative manager of that project. That is, of course, a big challenge. If you don't choice and resources to do differently, it is normal that you can find deficiencies in your system of control. So let's see things that we can do within those. So I'm talking here about specifically deficiencies that you can have on your financial control. Okay. So firstly, it is advised that when you have a project, that's how we do with our projects. Okay, I don't receive the funding on our institution account. I open a specific account for that funding, so that I know that at the end of the month, if I have to pay a salary or resources that is part of our institution activities, and I'm missing funds, I won't use the project fund for it. Okay, so if I'm doing the reconciliation of my funding at the end of the month, I'm sure that the account extracts that I have of my bank won't have any difficulty to be aligned with the budget management I have. So receiving funding from different currency as we are now managing. We are getting funding of euros on euros, and we are managing, let's say, in meticals or in the currency of your countries. Well, that has some deficiency that can come, which can be the exchange currency that you have that is can be fluctuative. It's not always the same. Or it can have, we'll see, also a difficulty in terms of the currency that you will be paying. Some of us, when we get funding in euros, like here in Mozambique, not 100% stays in euros. Some of the funding automatically goes to Meticash because of our central bank. It is the law. So you need to know that once that has been converted to Meticash, you won't be able to have any exchange rates different than that dates of that conversion. So the phases of payment of your pre-financing will then determine what you will be able to pay with the activities that will develop with that pre-financing. So going on, it is important on our financial management to really check with your resources and with your team and your network of collaboration what kind of payment options that we'll have. I mean, if we are finding like difficulties with some collaboration team in other provinces in which they don't have a bank account, so you can't do a transfer, you can't do a check because it won't get to him. So you need to have like M-Pesa is it is your phone company way of payment options. So it's a phone company that has a payment options that we have here in Mozambique, and I believe you have in your countries also. So this is a way for you to get your payment to your beneficiary, knowing that this won't be a way to justify that payment, but just to get there. It is important that each of these payment options has certain rules that you have to follow. So if it's in cash, normally you do a refund of your cash flow, and all of that has then to be addressed of how you're going to justify those expenses. So within the bank transfer, of course, you have the exchange fees and exchange rate fees that need to be addressed. We normally put like 0.04% within our first budget, initial budget, to be able to address all of these fees and not be able and not get in trouble because we didn't anticipate this cost before. So what are the means to justify your payments? It is important that any payment that you do need to have a justification. So let's say for the funding, the European funding, the VAT for the Sun Connect is accepted. So Sun Connect accepts to pay your VAT. But I'm managing a project with a different European funds, which doesn't accept. So I needed to costs available within my institution because I knew that within the reporting of the project, I couldn't consider that payment within the donors' funds. So that is some difficulties that you need to address. And then the declaration of receipts. I don't know about you guys, but here, let's say 80% of the people we work with are not institutions. They don't have an enterprise. They're artists, they are consultants, they are trainers, and there are people that don't have a company to give you a receipt. So in order to pay them, you need to do like a contract, and then you need to pay a fee to your government, and that fee can here in Mozambique go from 10% to 20%, depending on the of the person you're working with. If it's an artist in Mozambique, you can pay 10%. So within the fee that you're paying him, or 20% if it's a consultant. So it's important that you know when you develop your projects that the person that you will be hiring to do a certain task, does he have a receipt to give you, or will you have to do a declaration within your institution to justify in your finance that payment? And that percentage has to be considered at the beginning of the project, because if it isn't, it's a 20% increase on that payment that was not addressed before, and can become then a challenge to manage your projects once you're implementing the activities. So going on, this is like specific things, routines that you can do on your everyday. If you have a financial manager, which it is the best solution for you, he will know that every month he needs to put together all these justification documents and confront all these justification documents within the bank account statements that you'll have, because you'll need to do a reconciliation. You are getting the fund within a bank account, and that bank account has balances every month. So once every transaction that you do on that bank account goes on your balance, and all of that transaction then needs to be verified within the payments that you've done. And know that you will do more payments within one transfer or one movement on your bank account. And all of those payments, all of those people that you will pay, all of those materials that you will pay or buy, need to have a receipt and then be organized in a specific dossier, in a specific file that is that will then justify the reconciliation of your bank balance. We can go on. So this monthly routine. And that is done within the expenses that you'll do every day. So I advise that every day, each time you pay something and you get a receipt, you put that into your file, into that activity file or that result file, and you already organize what is that going to. So if I'm paying, like for instance, material to a certain supplier, I will put into my receipt as a note of what is the activity and what is the budget line that invoice is going to. So once the financial manager is taking that in consideration, or your accountability is organizing your accountability, he will know that that specific invoice will go to a specific budget line. So once you're doing your financial reporting, you will know how to manage that budget line. So continuing on, some tools that you can use to be able to, on your ongoing projects, be able to make a link between your first budget and the expenses that you will then report on your first financial project. So one first thing is the projection of costs that you will have in the next months or in the next activity. So you know what is the budget platform that you have for your activity. So I am the activity. Let's say that I am the activity developer, and I will inform my financial manager that next month he'll need to organize a budget for me to implement my activity. So I send them and forecast expensive sheet that informs them in detail what is the fund I need to get for my activity and what is that fund going to. Okay. So then to verify that fund that I have received, I have the receipt and payment map, which is the exact expense that I had within the fund that I got for those. So let's see these two documents. So the first document, which is the sheets that is telling our financial manager what is going to be a next expense. It's normally aligned with your budget structure. Okay, so you don't need to fill all of this. You will just see in the line in the line of budget that you are going to. Let's say if it's an equipment purchase, which is the line 4, you need to purchase a certain equipment. So you put that equipment within that budget with the fund that it was that was put within your initial budget, saying to your financial manager that you will need that fund within next month. Okay. So this is informing your financial manager that he needs, within the budget that is in your bank account, he needs to organize if it's a transfer to a supplier, if it's a cash flow money, he needs to prepare that payment because he has many payments to pay within the week and the month. He has many things to take care of. So you need to inform him in advance that he needs to organize that fund so that when you need it, he has already organized like the check or the transfer. So then the next slide, please. So then you have your expense map. So here you will put some from left to right. You will put, let's go to the next one. This is the European, I like this one, which is more simple. The slide before is the European expensive sheets that they use. You have a more simple one. So let's go from left to right. You put the date in which you paid something, okay, and then you put the reference of that invoice or of that receipt, all right, and then you put a description of what is that you're paying. So let's say you're paying a sound equipment, so you put that today you paid an invoice in which you get a receipt with that reference, that number of that receipt, and then you explain what is that going to. It was so to purchase a sound equipment. So I put that if it's an entry or something that is being paid. So you can put on this field the fund that you're receiving from your financial manager, or the payment that will be being done, so that you can see then what will be the saldo. How do you say saldo in Portuguese, in English? The balance. You'll see what is the balance at the end of your month. So the last column on your left is your budget line, so that you know the specific payment that you've done is belongs to a specific budget line. And at the bottom of the sheet, you have the total of that budget line within all the expenses that you have above, okay? So this helps you on your financial report. So at the end of the month, when I'm doing my financial report, I use these sheets to see what were the expenses that I had, to which budget line these expenses were corresponding, and then I just go and get these numbers and put it in my financial reports. So everything is already pre-organized by budget lines and by expenses. Okay, so let's go on. We get to the end of this short presentation. I am conscious that I have maybe not helped you resolve specific situations in which you are now in. So let's take the opportunity to two things. Either to clarify things that I've talked about and you need to, you have a question about, or you can bring me maybe a problem that you're facing now and see if it can be of any help for you to overcome. Okay.
So before we move on to Mrs. Marietta Manjat's address, I just want to answer, we had a question from Melody. So Melody asked for a bit more detail on how the declaration of the receipts are done and how are they managed, and because of the situation of the 10 or the 20% for artists and consultants.
Hi, Melody, and thank you for the question. Just quickly before, sorry everyone if this was really long English. You maybe have been like bored for 45 minutes, but so Melody, about the declaration. So if I have an invoice to justify that payment, then the institution, the project, will elaborate this declaration, which will go like me, Pablo Ribeiro, confirms receiving this amount for the task that I have done, with the specification of that task within this project. Okay, and then I sign that document. So that document stays one copy with the artist, and the other copy will stay with us, with the project, and will help us. Will be the justification document for that payment. So what is the percentage that we have to pay to the government for as a fee within that payment? Here in Mozambique, if you're paying an artist, it is just 10%. Okay. But if you're paying like me as a consultant and I don't have an invoice or a receipt, that will be 20%. So the importance of that is if you're able to anticipate that percentage when you're doing the budget, then you can include in it. And if you're not, then you'll have, it will affect the management of your budget when you'll be implementing the project. Then just to finish this, as for the VAT, it is important to see if the donor accepts to pay that fee. So Sound Connect accepts to pay the VAT and any kind of fee that you will pay for services or suppliers, including this declaration. So if you're doing a declaration to pay an artist because he doesn't have any receipts, and you have to pay up on that value 10%, then Sound Connect will consider that value also. But if it was not considered in your budget, then well, of course, it will affect your budget, expecting that cost, that value should be short. If it's a big value, then it can be a difficulty.
Questions from Callisto or Catherine, Jenny, Kondwani, Stephen, Antonio. Anyone have any questions? Going once, going twice, and sold on moving on to our next speaker. So who we have next? Thank you so much, Pablo, for your time with us today. I'm going to invite onto the podium Mrs. Marietta Manjat. Marietta Manjat is a production director. She has been a production director at Promart for 27 years and is currently also performing the functions of executive director. She specialized in film production and team coordination in in the cinematographic activities with specifically communities. And in her professional career, she has produced over 150 national and international fiction films, documentaries, and series. Without further ado, I'd like to invite us to speak to witness the address of Marieta Manjat. Sorry, I just want to state again that I'll be doing a translation once again. So please, can we just have a little bit of patience with the time delay between the Portuguese and the English? Thank you.
Posso? Boa tarde. Obrigada pela oportunidade. Meu nome é Marieta Manjati. Sou diretora de produção e acumulo também a direção executiva da Promarte. A Promarte é uma produtora de cinema.
Obrigada. So yes, good afternoon and thank you. I'm Marieta Manjat. I am the production director for
Desculpa-me, dizia que acumulo também a direção executiva da Promarte. A Promarte é uma instituição de audiovisual há mais de 27 anos.
I'm also the executive director of Promart, which is has been in the film sector for over 27 years.
Além de fazer a direção de produção, também já coordenei 400 exibições de sessões móveis a nível das comunidades mais recônditas de Moçambique, na dinamização sobre a HIV/SIDA em Moçambique.
Other than directing, executive directing of the company Promarte, I've also coordinated over 400 exhibitions of film in the communities, as well as a vehicle of communication in the communities against HIV and other serious projects.
E obrigada por essa oportunidade.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Vou partilhar convosco a minha experiência durante a minha trajetória.
So I'm going to be sharing with you my experience throughout my trajectory, professional trajectory.
Nos pontos que eu vou frisar, tenho dois, que é a gestão orçamental versus como preparar orçamento.
So the points that I'm going to be addressing today is budget management versus how to prepare a budget.
E também vou falar de falta de como é que vou dizer? A falta de recibos e faturas e a elegibilidade dos recibos perante a fiscalização nossa moçambicana e os doadores.
I will also be addressing the issue that is the lack of receipts and supporting documents and the eligibility for our donors and local financial institutions.
Então, indo direto ao ponto, vou falar da gestão orçamental. E deixa-me dizer primeiro que em Moçambique a área da cultura, o nosso setor cultural é o setor mais pobre.
I'm going straight to the point. I'm going to be talking about budget management. So here in Mozambique, the cultural sector is very, very poor.
Porque é um setor que menos se apoia e não temos budget no orçamento de Estado que se diz que esse budget é para apoiar a cultura, e estou a falar diretamente do próprio cinema. Não temos esse budget em Moçambique.
Because it's a sector that mainly isn't supported financially, and if there is any budget given by the government, it's very little, and it's not always directed specifically to film, which is one of the areas that suffers the most for lack of budget.
É muito difícil fazer cultura em Moçambique.
It's very difficult to do culture here in Mozambique.
Então, para fazer um bom orçamento, é necessário primeiro fazer uma boa, o que eu posso dizer, um bom levantamento das necessidades do guião. Eu vou falar diretamente daquilo que eu domino, que é produção de cinema.
So the first thing that you should know on managing a budget is to make sure that you break up all the elements that you find in your script. I'm going to be focusing more area of expertise, which is cinema. And so that's where we're going to mental point.
É que no cinema nós temos 3 fases de pós-produção.
I just want to explain pre-production, production, and post-production.
Então, para nós podermos ter um bom resultado, é preciso que depois de maneiras que tenhamos todas as necessidades.
So first things we have to do is to do a good production is to take your budget. Once you have the budget, take it and then compare it to the script and make sure that you separate all the detailed parts of the script and make sure that they're in alignment with your budget.
Estou a falar do levantamento das necessidades, tais como a minha equipe técnica, a equipe artística, a logística, os adereços e tudo que faz parte do guião e faz parte das 3 fases que eu me referenciei há bocado.
So my focus would be making sure that the budget covers all my team. So my technical team, my artistic team, everything that's logistics, hair and makeup, costumes, everything that will be needed, that will be referenced in the script. I'll have to make sure that my budget covers to be able to do an end product, which is the film.
Queria referenciar que esse trabalho parece menos importante dentro da estrutura de fazer o trabalho de produção, mas é o mais importante, porque é fundamental que a pessoa, ao levantar todas as necessidades para fazer a produção, tenha todo o cuidado de ponto por ponto para não falhar nada, porque no fim, sem essa preparação, o nosso trabalho não vai ter resultados esperados.
Many might think that the budget point it's actually the least important, but if you were to look at it in a financial point of view, without the money, the film would not be done. So if we don't know point per point how much every point will cost, we won't have the money to be able to cover all the points, and then there'll be gaps in the production that won't be able to be paid.
O que estou a tentar explicar aqui, depois do levantamento dessas necessidades, termos a equipe técnica já levantada, quem é que eu preciso, o que é que eu preciso na equipe artística. Neste caso, estou a falar de um budget de um filme de ficção que é mais composto do que um documentário e que precisa de mais, o que é que eu posso dizer, de mais trabalho do que um filme documentário. Não que o filme documentário não tenha, mas a ficção é mais composta e tem mais itens que eu posso explicar melhor e possa interferir melhor no que nós queremos aqui perceber.
So, first of all, when it comes to human resources, I will need to know exactly how many people and who will be working in my technical team, who will be part of my artistic team, so that I can have the whole production plan firmly laid out. Without this, the whole project will be stalled.
Então, depois de eu fazer o levantamento das necessidades, de ter o que com quem vou trabalhar, aonde vou trabalhar, quais são os meios que terei, aí eu posso sair dessa fase e ir à fase da pesquisa.
So once I already know who I'm going to be working with, when I'm going to be working with them, what are their costs, I can now move on from aligning these necessities and start focusing on the actual research point of the project.
Uma coisa que queria explicar um pouco aqui, a pesquisa muitas das vezes é paga depois, já na preparação, depois do budget aprovado, depois do valor, termos lá. É uma situação que temos que perceber que vem após, apesar de ser uma coisa fundamental para se fazer antes até de fazer o próprio orçamento.
Most of the time, we'll only be receiving the budget for for the research step post film, when even though that the research has to be done pre-production to be able to make sure that the alignment of the story, of the narrative is correct.
Então, depois de fazer esse levantamento que acabei de dizer, vamos à pesquisa. A pesquisa é fundamental porque a maior parte dos filmes que eu fiz fora de Maputo, e gostava de explicar aqui que para os países da SADC, que não, algumas pessoas podem não conhecer Moçambique. Maputo encontra-se no sul do país. De Maputo, isso requer uma logística diferente quando estamos na capital.
So just to put everyone a bit in more context of the situation, most of the projects that I've done have always been out of the main capital. So we're currently working in Maputo, which is the capital city, but most of my projects have always been done up north in the center of the country. So for this, it's necessary for us to have a logistics team within those countries, and that requires a research on our part or on her part. To understand how the people and the communities in these different provinces and areas of the country work.
Então, vão perceber isto porque o que eu quero explicar adiante é que ao fazer uma pesquisa de uma província do norte, onde eu tenho que percorrer 3.000 quilômetros, é uma logística bem diferente quando faço no sul do país, que os custos são menores, porque estou dentro da minha jurisdição, digamos.
There's lots of costs involved just for this location. For instance, the cost of a budget for a film being here in the city would be much less because I'm in my jurisdiction, everything is still close by. However, if I'm going to go to another province, which is about 3,000 kilometers away, it's the transport of the teams, it's the transport of equipment, it's understanding if we'll have everything that we need around us or if we're going to have to outsource this to be brought to us. So that changes the whole dynamic of the budget, which makes the budget go higher.
Então, o que quero explicar aqui é que vou para o norte do país, faço a minha pesquisa, vejo a logística dos hotéis, alimentação, transporte, via aérea se for necessário, e volto com esses dados para vir fazer um orçamento em janeiro, por exemplo.
For this, I would do my research. I'll go to these areas or to these provinces, and I will research what the logistics are in terms of hotels and accommodation, what the logistics are in terms of getting food and water, and 3 meals a day for the team and for the artists. So all of this would need to be studied beforehand, so that we can know how the costs are in that part of the country, depending on the costs on where we are at the moment, and then be able to do the gap on pricing.
Chego cá, faço o orçamento, já tenho todas as necessidades compostas, faço o orçamento, estou em janeiro, a minha produção é prevista para fazer em setembro.
So I'll come back to Maputo, and then I'll start doing my budget using this research. And for instance, this will all be done hypothetically in January, keeping in mind that my production will start in September.
Quero abrir aspas aqui para vos explicar, para poderem perceber o que é que estou a dizer. Fazendo esse orçamento em janeiro e submeter a uma aprovação, vamos supor que é um trabalho de autor que eu estou a apresentar aos financiadores, faço o orçamento em janeiro, levo a aprovação para fazer em setembro, devo perceber de que em setembro terei um problema por apresentar, ou um problema por enfrentar.
So I would be doing this budget ahead of time to be able to have time to still adjust and then have it approved by the donors, by the rest of the team. But knowing that when I get to September, there might be an issue that I will have to address, an issue that will be faced once we get there.
O primeiro problema que vou encontrar são as variações cambiais. O segundo problema é porque estive a 3.000 quilômetros de Maputo e numa época baixa, estamos em janeiro, onde é a altura das pessoas voltarem das festas, não há muita coisa. E em setembro, na altura de eu for a filmar, é época alta, época que os hotéis, as alimentações estão a subir, o meu budget a partir desse momento vai ter problemas.
So the issues I will be confronted with is exchange rate change, from January to September, the exchange rates can and will go through any changes, and any changes that might be under our budget would end up giving us a budget that's lower than we expected. We also have the situation that in the different times of the year, the different hotels and accommodations might have price changes according to high or low season. Being September, the start of the peak of summer, here in Mozambique, the prices will clearly start to rise. When at the end of January, the prices start to go down because it's the end of the summer and people will be going back to work.
Desta forma, a solução que temos ao fazer o budget é ter item de imprevistos onde possa contemplar. E eu acredito que não vais contemplar toda a percentagem que tiveres déficit se houver variações de câmbio ou mudança de preços, mas ao menos terás uma previsão de que nesse imprevisto tem que contar com essas situações.
My solution for this is to always keep in mind a item which is called the imprevisto, would be imprevisto. Not thought of, not okay, for issues that are not thought of in beforehand. So we'll have like this item for issues that are not have, unknown issues that might appear, and you keep a percentage of your budget for that unknown problem. So obviously you're not going to be able to calculate all the issues because there'll be issues that you won't be able to remember or you might not think might happen, but at least this percentage will be your fail safe if something were to go wrong.
Isto é uma das dificuldades que encontramos quando preparamos um orçamento e já na sua própria gestão do orçamento.
And this is an issue that we'll find while you're organizing while you're still compiling your budget, but as well when you start to implement your budget.
Na gestão do orçamento também o problema é que temos durante já.
Another thing that we need to always make sure that is done properly before implementing your budget is the contracts and the accordances that you do with the human resources, whether it be local or whether it be outsourced or consultants.
O que acontece? Na altura da preparação do orçamento, eu faço o orçamento com base nos trabalhos anteriores que já foram feitos, com base nas necessidades, no trabalho que vou fazer atualmente.
So what I normally do is that I compile my budgets using previous budgets that I've done, and then adjust them depending on the necessities that this specific project will or will not need.
Temos aqui em Moçambique problema muito sério que é uma tabela única de pagamento para os técnicos e seja para a equipe técnica ou para a equipe artística. Não temos
an issue that we have here in most general market size, so the prices can vary as needed. Whereas in other countries, we do have the market table that we can consult in terms of pricing.
Muitas das vezes recorremos a uma tabela dos orçamentos portugueses, uma vez que a maior parte dos fundos vem de lá e somos falantes da língua portuguesa, temos vários contactos, recorremos a essa tabela, apesar de não ser uma tabela real, porque os orçamentos portugueses e moçambicanos nunca são igualitários por causa da moeda que não é igual também.
What we can sometimes do is use the Portuguese tables, market tables as reference, because most of the time our donors are from the Portuguese countries, and so we'll use them as a base. However, there'll always be a slight discrepancy between prices because of the difference in the exchange rate. Obviously, the Mozambican metical and the European euro will never be on the same level, so there'll always be this slight discrepancy between pricing because of the exchange rate.
Então, os acordos com a equipe técnica, tanto com a equipe artística, têm sido muito difíceis de o fazê-lo, porque tem que ser o valor que tens, o valor que colocaste no budget, e é uma discussão, muitas das vezes, que temos que chegar ao meio termo para fechar esse negócio. Mas com falta dessa tabela tem sido muito difícil.
So it's a big issue closing deals with technical staff because you have, for instance, the table that it's known internationally. You have the pricing that the technical consultant will think that they believes that they should receive. Then you have your budget line. So it's a kind of a discussion that will have to be done to be able to find a midterm that the technical consultant is happy with, but that the budget can also manage. And without this market table of cachet for technical teams, it's a very difficult process to get into these different contracts.
Acabamos tendo problemas no meio de uma filmagem, ator pode dizer que, olha, assinei contrato, esse valor que vou receber, mas eu acho que devia receber um pouco mais. Isso, às vezes, também é falta de profissionalismo das pessoas, mas também é por falta dessa tabela que eu me referenciei há pouco tempo.
We've had many instances where in the middle of the production, one of the actors will come and say, yes, I've agreed to this price and I've signed the contract and deserves more, which is a bit of actor's part. However, since we don't have a table, that's always going to be an issue.
Mas no fim nós encontramos o meio termo e resolvemos o trabalho. Eu preciso daquele ator e ele também precisa de fazer o trabalho, acabamos fechando. É uma das dificuldades que tem na gestão orçamental daquilo que eu queria vos passar.
It's an issue that I always have in all of my productions, but at the end of the day, we do find a middle ground because we need the actor, but the actor also needs us. So at some point we do reach an accordance.
Posso dizer que é um problema de gestão de recursos humanos no meio de uma produção de cinema.
It can be used as an example of an error in human resources during a film production.
Na mesma gestão, leva-me a querer aqui deixar um bocadinho daquilo que posso, que é a falta de recibo e a própria elegibilidade, o nosso governo, que é a fiscalização e perante ao financiador.
Another issue that we have is the lack of supporting documents within the communities, the lack of receipts, the lack of vendors' documents, and the lack of organization in terms of government to be able to regularize these supporting documents nationwide for these kind of projects, which are a requirement for our donors.
Isso é uma das coisas que temos problemas na gestão do orçamento aqui, porque muitas das vezes, como eu me referenciei atrás, fizemos um filme fora da cidade, onde o comerciante não tem documentos legais. Ao adquirir os produtos, o documento que me dá contra o produto que eu levo, contra o valor que paguei, muitas das vezes não é elegível.
As I mentioned before, this is one of the main issues for budget management. For example, I did a film a while back where it was outside of the capital city, and we needed to purchase a few things from a commercial stand. However, this commercial stand had no receipts, no way of giving us a tracked list of what we purchased, which gave us a deficit in terms of supporting documents to represent to our donors.
Então, como é que a gente resolve esse problema?
How do we resolve this problem?
Levo uma folha de caixa, a folha de caixa onde vem o produto que comprei, é assinada pelo vendedor, é assinada pela pessoa de produção, pelo meu produtor executivo, para poder servir de documentação elegível perante a fiscalização, assim como para o financiador.
So the way I resolve this issue is that I make sure that I have a cash receipt that is done just by production. So it's kind of like a cachet declaration where I will sign all the items that were purchased, and the commercial stand owner will sign it. I will sign it as production manager. My executive producer will also sign it, which is then seen as a legible, a legitimate supporting document to support the cost that was then taken.
E muitas das vezes temos que pedir mais, além da assinatura, além dos outros testemunhos que vão assinar, temos que pedir o BI do vendedor e temos que pedir o número de contacto. Isso leva-me a ter um documento mais ou menos legal que pronto, não posso inventar, ter testemunhas, ter telefone e ter também o BI, se não for uma coisa que comprei e certamente ter entregue o valor para essa pessoa.
So many times, not only do we need the witness signatures, but we'll also need copies of the merchant's ID. We need their contact number and so forth, which, at the end of the day means that I've got a legitimate supporting document, because there's no way I can actually fraudulate an ID copy, someone's ID copy, or fraudulate someone's contact number.
E outra maneira que temos de solucionar esse problema é levar uma folha de pagamento onde relatas tudo que houve e pega na folha de pagamento, ao regressar para a cidade, submeter as finanças pagando uma taxa legal para poder legitimar aquele documento.
Another option that we also do is that we formulate a payment document, which is then you compile all the costs or the informal costs that you have. You'll take it to the national finances, and you'll pay obviously a tax of a legal tax of some kind, so that they can legitimize that document of all your informal costs.
Não porque a primeira folha de caixa que falei seja aceite de uma maneira imediata nas finanças, porque as finanças também têm um certo valor onde eles aceitam apresentar as folhas de caixa. Tem que fazer respeitando um certo volume de valores que possa apresentar nas finanças. Fora disso, tem que se pagar a taxa.
And it's not, I think it's important to phrase here that these informal receipts are not always directly accepted, and at the finances there is a limit to the amount of informal costs that you can have per project. So it's very important that you respect these limits, as when you want to go to the finances to get everything legitimized. If you go over these informal costs, they will be rejected.
E também queria voltar um bocadinho atrás relativamente à gestão do orçamento no terreno, seja cá, seja onde for.
So I'd also like to go over certain points of importance in any budget, wherever you may be.
Porque várias vezes a gente fica com o orçamento extra budget, porque ao chegar no local do trabalho, tu sabes que fizeste um acordo, não fizeste um acordo. Colocaste no budget que são 50 mil para alugar um caminhão, por exemplo.
We have issues where you end up at the end of the budget with extra budget, because starting off, when you went and did your research, that you negotiated 50,000 for a truck.
Ao chegar na hora de trabalho e perceberem que trata-se de cinema, trata-se de uma produção maior, o transportador, ao perceber que não tens alternativa também de voltar para trás, aumenta o preço e tens que pagar na mesma, e aí tens problema na gestão do seu orçamento.
And then
Mais uma vez.
when you get to the location, suddenly the truck owner, knowing that you're in a production, and the production may not stop, it has to always continue, will then decide then and there to up his price, and there's nothing really you can do. You'll have to go over budget to be able to cover this resource because it's necessary to go on with your production.
Isso é comparado aos hotéis, aos carros que a gente aluga, alimentação e tudo. Solução disso é sempre tentar fazer um pré-acordo na altura da pesquisa, na preparação, para evitar que no fim o teu orçamento seja maior do que aquilo que foi previsto.
This can also happen in any logistics situations such as accommodation, car hire, and so forth. And the way to prevent this from happening is to sign a pre-project accordance document saying that we have agreed on X price, and that's the price that we're going to carry on for this project.
Então, a solução é negociar, sempre negociar e tentar precaver antes para poder ter um resultado melhor e para poder ter uma produção tranquila.
So the key to preventing these types of issues is to negotiate well beforehand and make sure you have pre-signed agreements and make sure everything is agreed upon in writing beforehand.
E obrigada pelo vosso tempo, espero que tenha ajudado de qualquer jeito, qualquer pergunta, questão ou mesmo depois do workshop, estarei disponível para poder contribuir.
Thank you so much for your time, and I hope that what I have addressed today helped you in any way. And even after this workshop, I will be available to answer any queries that you may have through the SIPATI email. I now open the floor for any questions. Does anyone have a question about budgeting? Oh, Jenny, hi.
Hi, yeah, thank you. That was super helpful. I think one of the things that I'm curious about related to budgeting is when you have your own equipment that you're using for a production, how do you include that in the budget?
Ok. Obrigada, Jenny. Quando eu tenho meu próprio equipamento, eu tenho que colocar no orçamento um valor estimado, como eu dizia antes, nos prestários, porque a tabela de preço de equipamento cada empresa tem. Então, eu coloco o que vou usar naquela produção.
Thank you, Jenny, for your question. So basically what we do with our own equipment is that we normally every company has a market-based table with all the pricing for equipment. So what I do is that I add the hiring of our equipment using the base market pricing.
E mesmo não tendo equipamento, ou tendo equipamento deficitário que tem que adquirir na altura perante aquele projeto, eu faço o meu investimento, compro equipamento, mas a tabela de preço é sempre a mesma, apesar de ter acabado de adquirir o equipamento. Coloco o preço da tabela e alugo.
Hello, good afternoon. I can see a lot of partners missed. Okay, so let me accept one comment on Jane's question about the line of when you have your own equipment. So depends for which are your donors. If some donors or some projects or some politicians say that you can't use your equipment, for example. I mean, maybe you can buy equipment, but you can't include your equipment on the budget. But if it's a service, maybe you can put it. Depends on the situation. So okay, for my final consideration for today, I would like to thank you for everyone participation on the section of today. So we will continue to develop our project, and for everyone who doesn't send the profile companies, please, and another requirements SIPATI send, please send it. So thank you. We will continue. The next stage is it for develop the materials and create the websites